Do you see India going to war in the near future? On the one hand, I don't want to see India go to war. On the other hand, it's very counterintuitive, but wars are good for nations. They harden nations. You know what a war does? First of all, it trims out all the fat from the military. If your nation is at war and you have your armed forces in that hypothetical theoretical scenario fighting a war on the front lines, you're going to have attrition on the battlefield. People will get knocked out of action, right? Casualties. When you have casualties, you have field promotions on the battlefield. And battlefield promotions are always based on merit, not on seniority. So, battlefield promotions will give you a really hard and capable leadership. But that only happens in warfare. When you have a war, a nation at war, your entire economy gears towards war. You have to cut out all the nonsense, all the BS, all the flab. You have to gear the entire economy towards the war effort. It also reorients, kind of magnetizes society in a certain way. All the traitors are exposed very rapidly, and then, well, whatever, right? So in a way, a war keeps a nation that goes to war on a, let's say, a frequent basis. It's generally a much harder, leaner, meaner nation, and it has a much more higher nationalistic outlook among its population. Nationalism is not being patriotic, is not about raising slogans. I love my country. I will give my life for my country. I support our armed forces. All that is just sloganeering. You have to be patriotic with your actions in various ways. So that's what happens when you have an actual war going on. So, one of the nations that's always at war, essentially, is the US. And you can see it's got a very hard edge because of that. And in the past, you had the UK that was always at war. It was always expanding, colonizing. It had a very hard edge. Russia has seen a tremendous amount of warfare. Russia has a very hard edge. When was the last time India was at war? We had a very limited war, the Kargil War, whenever it was, 98 or 2001, whichever year it was. Before that, we had 71, but after that, we've not had a war. I mean, look, I'm not saying I'm not being a warmonger. I'm not advocating going to war. War is obviously terrible. We would like to see peace, but looking at this thing from a certain perspective, war is not entirely a bad thing from a certain perspective. War is terrible for civilians. War has all kinds of suffering, human suffering. Terrible. But at a macro level, wars can be good for countries. That's the paradox that we face. But I would say that I rather hope that India does not go to war in the near future, because it will be bad, perhaps most likely bad for our economy. And yeah, we would like to have peace for the next 20 years minimum, so that we can fully build up the economy. And another advantage of war is that, a nation that's at war doesn't tolerate soft leadership. Hopefully. Otherwise you lose. You end up losing. You become a loser. So a leader that's weak is hopefully shoved out, and a really hard-edged leader comes to power, which is good for a nation. So those are the advantages of a nation being at war a lot of the time. But we don't want to be in that position right now. We need a lot of reforms in the country. We need our economy to grow. And for that, we would not want to go to war. So I hope India doesn't go to war for the next 20 years minimum. And right now, it doesn't look like there's going to be a scenario in the near to medium term future where we go to war. So hopefully it stays that way.